Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar this morning. Today's topic will focus on migrating from HP Service Manager to Cherwell software. I'll be your host. This is Laura Walker with StrataCom. StrataCom is a premier Cherwell partner, and we're holding this webinar this morning jointly with the Cherwell team. I have as our speaker today Greg Gerton of StrataCom. He's a senior consultant. He is dual certified in both HP Service Manager as well as Cherwell software, so he should be able to answer any and all questions you have. Greg's been on our staff for over 10 years. He has 10 years with Service Manager and about 4 years with Cherwell. As we get going this morning, any questions you have, we would like to try to address those as we go. I invite you to ask any questions you may like in the questions pane. If you don't see that questions pane, just look for a small orange square with a white arrow. If you click that, it should expand all the panes open to you and you can answer your questions there. Before we get going, I wanted to give a quick overview of who is StrataCom. We were founded in 1997 as an IT service management consulting company. We're headquartered in the Midwest. We have offices around the Midwest, but also other parts of the country as well, Florida, Virginia. I'm currently in Colorado. We are focused on service management. We don't try to be everything to everyone. We are service management experts. We've got a full staff of very senior W-2 consultants. We don't outsource overseas, so forth. You're going to know the people that you get. And our consultants are all versed in both process and technical consulting, so you don't have to choose between one or the other. Next slide. If we can ever be of service to you after this call, we would certainly love to assist you in migrating from HP to Cherwell. Beyond that, we do, as I mentioned, initial implementations. We do process evaluations and consulting. We do a lot of add-on work for the HP crowd. You know that means lots of upgrade work. For the Cherwell crowd, it's more ongoing build out of the tool, adding in mergeable applications, integration work. We do also do staff augmentation. If we can ever be of service, please reach out to us at any other time. With that, I'd like to get into what you're actually here to see today. So I'm going to turn it over to our consultant, Greg Gerton, to lead you through.
Hi, thank you, Laura. So like Laura said, my name is Greg Gerton. I've been working with StrataCom for about 10 years, a little over 10 years. And I do know both products very well. So it gives us a good chance to kind of talk through the differences between the two or some of the advantages of a newer tool. So I got a brief overview. I am going to switch back and forth between the slides and a demo version of Cherwell. That's just set up with some out-of-box data just to kind of give you guys a little bit of a feel of what it looks like. And I am very, very pro of a interactive discussion. So please feel free to jump in at any time and we can answer questions. Otherwise, we can always answer questions as well at the end. So with that, we're going to cover some of the big differences between the tools, which would be the development changes. There's a lot of differences between how something would be built in an HP world versus in a Cherwell with a codeless environment. We'll talk about extending ITSM. Cherwell gives you so much flexibility with the development that we can build out outside of just your regular ITSM. The upgrades being easier, and then some of the licensing changes that you may see. So let's start with the big one usually for most people who have been working with HPSM is how their day-to-day life would change as an admin. If you're working with an admin or how you would get changes through. So that would be the development changes. With HP, you guys obviously would know that you have to deal with many different layers. Product was initially built in the 90s. It's something that's been kind of built upon many, many times, and they've built many different or added to it many times. So you now have the process designer, but that process designer still sits on top of format controls, the display options, the different notifications with the RAD layer, and then obviously you'll have access to the JavaScript piece in many different areas within the tool. That is very challenging for an admin to pick up quickly. to become kind of competent within the tool, which provides its own challenges, especially if you have people get trained and move on or move up within the company. What we'll notice with Cherwell is Cherwell does things the same way regardless of where you are within the tool. So they like to use their codeless functionality, and what I would say for codeless would be their one steps that they use. And those one steps, what they'll do is allow you to build things based on queries or expressions. So I like to call it like an expression-based development, where you can build out an expression that does something. You can have a calculation or whatever it is, and then other expressions that continue to run against whatever you're trying to do. And I will show this so that you guys can see that. It's very powerful. I have not run into anything that I could do with a previous tool that I can't do with this. So things that I used to have to use JavaScript for, I am now able to go through with the one step. So for example, I need to step through a bunch of related records. I have a bunch of incidents related to a change. I can use a one step and use the step through children to walk through the relationship and update each one of those tickets without ever having to write any code or JavaScript. So it is a very powerful part of the tool, and I will kind of show that here in just a second, just to show you guys what it'll look like. The ability to develop inside those one steps is available everywhere within the tool, and that's kind of another very key differentiator between HP. You don't have to have the different development aspects in different parts of the tool. So anywhere within Cherwell, if you're trying to do something, you'll have access to those one steps, and you can run that. So I'm going to jump out of the demo or the PowerPoint piece for a second, just to run in and show you guys what these one steps look like. So if I come into the Cherwell tool, I'm going to go open up. Let's look at that. So just a basic one step. This one step can run on a status change typically, and I'm just going to show you kind of how you can build this out without ever having to need any code. So if you look at this, this starts out. Sorry, a little bit of delay when I'm sharing my screen, it seems like. So it'll go through with a pop-up that's going to prompt and have a question, and that pop-up can only be triggered based on an expression. So when I mentioned we have expressions, so this expression says only if the level 2 escalation is complete do we want to escalate to a level 3. So if that's true, it's going to show this pop-up. If not, it'll go on to the next step. And if you look at this escalate to level 3, here we'll have the fields that are being set. So what we're doing is creating a task, assigning it to level 3 so that they know they're getting that task. And we actually go through later on and we'll send a notification as well. So we'll create a task, assign it to level 3. We're also going to go through and create a notification. And all of it is done using this tool, which is a drag and drop tool. So if you see right now it's creating a new task, that's just creating a new child business object. So all you would do is drag that onto the screen, and then you would choose the child business object to the current business object, which we're set an incident right now. And then you would choose your fields and fill them out. It's a very, very simple tool to use, and that's available anywhere within Cherwell. So if you're trying to trigger any custom workflow, this is the way to do that without having to write JavaScript. So I'm going to drop out of here back into the PowerPoint here, and we'll start talking about some of the other key differentiators between HP and Cherwell. So the next one that I want to talk about is going to be the service catalog. Service catalog is something that's really popular, even in HP. It's just something that's become very popular within the last 5-6 years. And the functionality that you're often trying to deliver is sometimes challenging to try and do. Everybody wants their Amazon style service catalog where they can go and just search for anything, add it to a cart, check out, things like that. And that's something that's doable within Cherwell out of box with dynamic forms and customizable fields, being able to trigger any workflow based on that request. I know HP has definitely added to that since the time that I've switched more to Cherwell. I know that they've tried to do a lot more. I know they also have that Propel product as well, where they can, they've been trying to push that for their service catalog piece. This is all built within Cherwell itself inherently and all delivered as one product. So this is something that's anyone who has Cherwell has the ability to do, and I will show this as well so that you guys can get a chance to take a look at it. But any catalog item, the big things to remember is that you can have the dynamic forms. So Cherwell has what's called a specifics form. So that specifics form is tied to a subcategory. So once you've selected your service category, subcategory, a form will display. And that form is unique to that category structure if you want it to be. You can obviously have a generic form as well. But the power there is each individual request can have its own form, its own workflow with dynamic functionality, and then that triggers additional workflow. So say you have your onboarding request, you go through, you fill out your onboarding request, and then you hit submit. You want to go for approval, and then you want to trigger tasks. You may want sequential versus all at once. So you can go through all your different task and workflow functionality and build that out from the service catalog, allowing your users to really utilize that end user portal instead of having to come into the tool to do it or go to another custom tool to do it. Cherwell has what's called an action catalog out of box. This allows somebody who has no service catalog today, and we're not trying to recreate a service catalog, but we want our first offering of service catalog that we're going to allow our users to kind of get their feet wet. The action catalog has a visible and portal checkbox, and if that checkbox is checked, it will build the catalog for you and just show those category items on the catalog instead of building out a dynamic catalog that's a lot more enhanced. It would allow you to just generate a catalog very quickly off of your existing category structure. There obviously have the ability to do full custom catalogs as well. And as I mentioned earlier, those forms are dynamic. So we can basically take what they call a widget and put that, or a link, a hyperlink, or image that has a reference out as a link, and create these different catalogs dynamically and in any visible form that you're looking for, allowing you a lot more flexibility than you've probably seen in the past. I know that before those forms were very locked down on HP's side. So some other new things that Cherwell does, at least when I was working with HP, they have an email integration or an email monitor that allows you to monitor incoming emails to a email inbox and then generate workflow based on that. So we use that commonly for our approvals. So we'll send out email approvals to your end users. And those approvers do not have to be users within the tool. They can be customers, so that doesn't take up a license. We'll send out that email. Then those people can then hit a hyperlink in the email, which opens a new email, sending it back to Cherwell. Once Cherwell receives that email, it approves the ticket and walks through the workflow. We also can, if you want, monitor an inbox. If somebody creates an email and sends it to a certain email address, we could create a ticket and start that generically as well. And we've used it to even integrate with things like SharePoint or other tools who can send emails in order to build some sort of integration point as well. Not typically my first choice, but it does work if you're in a pinch with a certain tool and you're trying to build out a certain type of workflow. It also has built-in reporting, which is, I think, something that we'd been looking for a long time. I don't know if that ever got delivered, but we have built-in reporting inside of Cherwell. It's very much like a SQL reporting services, which allows you to customize and tweak those reports any way you want against a SQL database. But we also have the dashboards and widgets, which I'll get into in the demo portion of this, that allows you all of that live feed into that data as you want to look at it. So the built-in reports, typically I use only if you're trying to send a report to a manager or something in an email or a file format. The next thing that we're going to talk about is extending ITSM. So one of the things that Cherwell allows you to do with the flexible platform is we can build out a new business object like incident or change problem very, very quickly inside Cherwell. And by having that ability, that's allowed us to build out other tools or outside of ITSM inside of Cherwell. And many of the examples that I have shown here with facilities, Red Tracker, which is more like a defect or enhancement tracker, approval delegation, HR, are all very common ones that we see users doing. And with Cherwell, we have what's called the Map Store, the Map Exchange. I think the name's changed a few times. But the end result is you have the ability to go download what we call a map, which is a bundled group of functionality that you can then apply to your system to take advantage of things that other people have done. So if customers or partners or Cherwell themselves have decided we've built this for another implementation, or we're building this to try and sell other people and give them access to this functionality that we think would be useful. So we'll take and bundle that together and put it on the Map Exchange for people to be able to go download and install. And these are examples of ones that are out there right now with the facilities, Red Tracker. Approval delegation is one that we've used a lot that we built, which is the ability to just go through and select a user to approve for somebody if they're out on vacation and it has like a start and an end date, things like that. And it will allow you to basically keep your approvals set the way they are, but have somebody approve for them. HR is obviously a very common thing that we see coming into ITSM as well. Another big selling feature that we do mention a lot to our HP customers. I've worked on quite a few HP upgrades, and I've seen them go from 3 to 6 months all the way to a year, depending on who you're working with, the data they're on, how many versions you're trying to go through. I remember working on the old Scooby-Doo files and trying to convert that into a SQL database and things like that. I mean, there's so many. Every time it seemed like a new version came out, there was something that caused the upgrade to be quite substantial. One of the things with Cherwell that is a very good selling feature, and I have personally witnessed this with many customers who had the same problems previously. It is as quick and easy as really double-click and running the upgrade. The only thing that I caution anybody to is, obviously, if you have a large environment that's used by a lot of users, I would always regression test everything just to make sure that nothing has changed. But none of the upgrades break anything per se. So usually it's something, a bug was changed that changes how something had worked or things like that. So as long as you do your standard regression testing, your upgrades can be as quick as 2 hours to 1 week, depending on how long it takes you to do regression testing. So it's a very, very quick upgrade process. I have on the note here, most upgrades can be done in as little as 30 minutes. I would liken it almost to trying to apply a binary upgrade in HP. So when you're upgrading just the server. So the way that the tool has been built out, Cherwell's upgrading their code, but they're not upgrading what we work with. So it allows them the ability to keep us kind of removed from what they're upgrading, and allows the upgrades to really go through seamlessly. Let's see. Another big selling feature here would be the licensing. Laura, do you maybe want to run through this slide quick? You might know this a little bit better than I do.
Sure, I'm happy to. So the biggest difference we see with HP customers in Cherwell, and a lot of you are probably looking at ServiceNow. Most of them are. The biggest difference you're going to see with Cherwell is the concurrent licensing model. So it's all concurrent or floating licenses. So you estimate how many folks you have in the system at any given time, and that's what you license for. A big difference you're going to see if you are evaluating ServiceNow is you don't have to pay for all these extra things. All the modules are included. Self-service user portals, they can access the portal for free. They don't need, there's no portal license. They don't need it to access that. The CMDB is included. Integrations are quite easy. A lot of them are available for free as maps off the map exchange. So you're not going to get nickeled and dimed. The only thing you purchase separately at this point is the asset management tool, which is an entire different tool that they acquired, built into the Cherwell platform. But other than asset management, everything you need, you have with that floating license. There's a variety of ways you can purchase as well. You could purchase up front, the traditional buy and pay maintenance model, or you can subscribe to the licensing, which is more common in the SaaS model. But regardless of which of those ways you choose to purchase, you can be on-premise or hosted. So if you want to buy up front and pay ongoing maintenance, you can still be hosted. So it's sort of piecing together the traditional and the SaaS models in any way that you see fit. So you could also subscribe to the licensing and pay yearly for those licenses, but be on-premise. So there's a lot of ways you can mix and match it to whatever your organization would prefer. Greg, I have a question. Now is probably a great time to jump into that. Can you talk a little bit more about why the upgrades are so fast and easy? I know you compared it a little bit to, the binary, but talk a little bit more about why they're so fast and easy compared to HP.
Sure. So real quick before we do that, one other thing on this licensing, I do want to mention I've got customers too who have changed so they purchased, but they've changed whether they've decided to be on-prem versus SaaS multiple times. So a lot of times, depending on who your driving force is internally in the company, CIOs change, whatever it is, some people have on-prem, some people say, no, we want everything in-house. It goes back and forth. It is an overnight thing that is very simple to do. It's the code is the same whether you're on-prem versus SaaS. So it's as simple as just standing up the server and moving the database. And it's something that we've done overnight for many customers. So back to the upgrades and why the upgrades are so easy. It really comes down to the codeless environment and having one way to do the development instead of having many different options. When they build things inside Cherwell, they build it using the same tools that we have. So that allows us the access. But the way it's been explained to me is their internal server components are basically inside of a bundle. And we work with the tool set. We never get to touch those internal, think of it as your RAD layer. We never touch that RAD layer. So if Cherwell upgrades, they're able to upgrade without worrying about what we touched. And therefore, every time I go to a customer site, I'm not finding one-off code that they built that somehow affects that upgrade differently. The only thing that we use are the one-steps doing expressions, which regardless of an upgrade is always going to be the same. So all the development that you take goes from version to version. You don't redevelop anything that you've built. Everything will upgrade seamlessly. So let's see here. We'll go into a little bit more with the demo now. That was pretty much the end of the slides, and I'll get into Cherwell and show it a little bit more, and hopefully that'll drive some more questions and maybe give you guys a little bit more of an understanding of how it works. So from a development standpoint, Cherwell has what they can call a blueprint. So when you're building something and you want to apply it from one environment to another, you can build a blueprint which tracks all the changes that you've made, and then you apply it to the other system. So I'll create a new blueprint here, and then you have access to all of your major business objects. We're going to go to incident just because that's the easiest one. Everybody usually has some form of incident. And if I come up to the top, we have different icons up here. I can go to business object. This shows me the fields as they are in SQL. Or I can go to the form, which will show the form in our form editor that we have within Cherwell, which looks like a basic form editor. On the left, I'll have the fields, and I can drag and drop a different field onto the form, move it, align it, however I want. So it's very simple to make changes to this. Now on the left, you'll see the I want to section with these hyperlinks. This is the easiest way for me to show it, but any action that I want to do to the tool, if I right click on it and go to control properties, I'm able to trigger an action. If I go open that, you can see that action is a one step. Now I have other possibilities, but these possibilities are all similar basic functionality, not development. The only development option I have is a one step, with the exception of maybe an integration piece where, again, it's going to be a one step that triggers to the integration. So that is the big reason why these upgrades are always very simple and successful, is we're using that same functionality regardless of what version we're on. So what they do within Cherwell is always upgraded the same. I hope that answers the question. It does help to be on a more modern code set. Obviously, this tool is built with all of a Microsoft suite of platforms. It's a SQL database. It was built using .NET. Those types of things are all helpful to us versus something that's been strung along since the 90s. So that it does give us some advantages too. Let's see here. So I showed the basic form functionality. One other thing to talk about is Cherwell truly has a relational database. So we build out relationships from one object to another, and we can build those custom relationships. So if I decided I wanted to build my own business object, I can create a relationship from incident to that business object and build out whatever workflow I want with that custom business object. So something very simple. I mean, you guys can see I have a incident business object here. If I wanted to create just a new object, I could go to a new business object and give it a name here, test, and set up a public ID. We want to use the rec ID, sure, create an index, and hit OK. And if I come over to the home screen here, you guys can see, just like that, I'll have my own business object to work with, just like incident. And I can build out my own custom business object now. I can go into the forms. I can go through a form wizard if I want, create a default form. I just use the default wizard. We'll have owned by team, and there's themes and other stuff that you can use to try and change the look and feel however you want. But the idea and the concept here is everything is codeless and very easy to use with the same tool set, making it simple to upgrade, because Cherwell doesn't allow you to get into, say, a JavaScript where you could do things that we can't account for in the upgrade. So I'm going to take that and go into the actual tool or the client that people would use so that you guys can see what that'll look like. So here's the landing page if you were to open the client. They use a dashboard interface. Now this allows you to visualize a lot of your data right on the form. I used to worry about reports a lot when I was working with HP. Almost 95% of my reports I don't have to do anymore, typically because we'll use dashboards and widgets to solve for it. Anybody that has access to Cherwell should be able to get the data they need live directly from the tool. The only people that I ever have to worry about a report for is usually like a CIO or upper management, where I need to take something, compile it in a nightly PDF and email it to them. And we obviously do that using the different tools that we have. We have a scheduler that can run that report and then email it to the person. So we have the ability to do those things, and we have a built-in if you're familiar with building out different reports, you can go build a report using Cherwell's reports, and they have a bunch of out-of-box reports. They include all the basic ITSM type or ITIL-based reports that you may see. So if I came in here and edited that, I can edit the search query or whatever I want to do, or do design report. This will take a second, but and of course I won't have any data, so this is just a sample system. But if I open that up, you guys will be able to see it looks very familiar to you. It looks very much like SQL reporting services. So once that opens, and I probably shouldn't have done that because this is a remote desktop session into another machine while doing a GoToMeeting. But we'll give that 1 second here to run, and then I'll get back into Cherwell. While we're doing that, does anybody have any questions about the Cherwell client, the interface, the dashboards, widgets, things like that? These are dynamic. I can double click them and they'll open what we're looking at. I'll show that here in a second. Laura, any other questions showing up?
I don't see questions on this content right here. Not yet, anyway.
Okay. Sorry, guys, I shouldn't have clicked this. Getting ahead of myself. I always think, hey, let's show this, but then the GoToMeeting slows down this connection quite a bit. So, all right, so here you can see the report, and if you wanted to come in here and build out any of the reports, you'll have access to all the fields. It's a SQL database, and you can see the basic out-of-box report designer. And you have all those out-of-box reports. You can edit them, copy them, customize them any way you want. So it gives you a lot of really good examples too as you're going through it. So as I close this here, I want to show these different widgets here. The nice thing is they're actually selectable. So if you show open incidents and requests, this little green section right here is third level support. If I go ahead and double click that little green section, it actually opens that list of records and will show those 7 records and give us those in a grid. And then obviously I can go ahead and select which record I'm looking for and open that record and get into the incident. So that is a kind of a nice little feature with the dashboards. Very different than just having a grid to start with. Allows a lot of flexibility for the reporting. We can have, I know a lot of people like to set up in their help desk, they'll set up a monitor at the top and they'll have a whole dashboard interface going with all their key metrics, and you can have it flashing in red when it's bad and all that other good stuff. So there's all those kinds of things that you can do. If I want to say open incidents, I want to open up the incident dashboard, I can go ahead and double click the open incidents. It's going to open up the incident dashboard and show those individual metrics. And then from here, I can see which incidents I want to look at. So I have 20 overdue incidents, and I go ahead and double click those. That's going to open up my 20 overdue incidents. If you want just this old grid style, I actually had one HP customer that wanted the old grid just right from the start. We can do that too. So don't think that we can't do it. It's just typically one of those a little bit more nice, new, more modern functionality to have that dashboard functionality. So on the left, you can see this global IT versus if I want to select my work, I can have my own custom dashboard for your employees. You could have this show up. Obviously, based on security and users, we can have everybody have their own dashboards when they log in, or different teams have their own dashboards. If I want to go, if somebody only deals with change management, they can have the change management dashboard and only look at the change stuff. So very simple. I kind of showed the incident form already, but I'm going to go ahead and open up a new one anyways. So if I go ahead and open up a new incident, or there was the button there on the incident form to create new incident, I'll go ahead and launch that. This entire form is customizable. Everything here can be changed. So if you guys decide you have a format that you really like right now, we can take a look at that format and see how it best applies to Cherwell. Obviously, you'll have some new functionality, so you'll probably want to take a look at some of the newer stuff, or anything that's a little bit different. But this will feed back into Active Directory to pull your contacts, or any other contact source that you may have through an integration. We can go ahead and go through this assign functionality. This hyperlink right here is, like I said, a one-step. So if we had to add something to that or a prompt with a custom prompt, all we do is edit that one step to do that work. We have SLAs timed against this. So I'll just go ahead and fill some of this out. We have a basic priority matrix. This is customizable as well. It's typically changed based on the SLA. We can change it based on service or category if we want as well. We do have a 3-tiered category structure out of box. I've seen a couple of HP customers want to add a 4th tier. We can do that. When I selected the subcategory here, you'll see that step 3 did show the a different form here, and now you can see for email and calendaring, it's got this connectivity form now. This is that specifics form I was talking about. So if we had somebody select this category structure on the portal side, it would show a form similar to this, allowing them to fill out what information they're looking for. And we can have different forms on the client versus the portal. So we can request information from the client and then populate that information into our other form that we then have the technician fill out additional fields to. So that gives us a little bit of power there from a workflow standpoint too.
Hey, Greg, I do have a few questions, so let me know when it's a good time to pause for those.
Now is a good time.
Okay, great. The first question is, talk about getting SM into Cherwell. Is Service Catalog included? Coming from an Oracle database? Can things be migrated?
So I can connect to a Oracle database to import data. I typically do, as a consultant, recommend not migrating existing tickets, but I know I've been overruled before. So what we would do is set up a table inside of Cherwell. We would then build the external connection to Oracle, migrate the data in to Cherwell, and then probably map it over into Incident. It's a little bit, it sounds tricky, but it's actually a lot easier than it sounds. The hardest part is usually going to be dealing with what are we going to do with those tickets? What state are they in? I would probably try to tell you guys that they should all be closed when they come over, but I mean, that's anytime you're dealing with moving data from one tool to a new tool, that's where things can get a little bit tricky. It's nice to have. I know I was working with a couple of large customers in the past, and typically we'll sunset the one system and keep that system running for a certain number of years so that we have access to that data, but no new tickets are created, and then go over and create new tickets in the new tool. That's usually the cleanest option, but we would be able to connect to Oracle and bring that data over. Did I miss anything on that? Sorry.
I don't think so. We did have a couple of related questions. Have you migrated existing data from Service Manager to Cherwell? As you mentioned, we usually encourage people not to, but we have had a couple of Service Manager clients, yes, who did want all their data migrated, and we have done it, and it did work. It takes time, but it's doable. You can do it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's pretty simple. We would build out an external connection to the database and then import that data.
Okay. Another related question is, can your speaker share his experience on migrating things specific to Service Manager towards Cherwell? For example, service desk interactions, the connect it interface, so forth.
Yeah, so we don't use connect it with Cherwell. We would just connect directly to the SQL database. So let me show an example here. So we would go through on this database, we would run a import external data, and I would choose a business object here. Right now you can't see a business object, so if I go create a new business object, let's see here if I get yelled at for doing this, but let's do a new external business object, and we'll just link to the data for now, but you saw the import data. So you have to create this connection using their connection wizard. Then you choose, you can see the different options here with whether you have an ODBC connection, Oracle, SQL Server, OLEDB, whatever that is, we're going to choose SQL Server. I don't have anything else located here. If I do this, I have no idea what database I'm looking at here, so I apologize, but we'll go ahead and grab something here with Windows authentication, hopefully. And so this probably isn't going to be a good example, but you guys can kind of see the functionality here. So I'm walking through basically creating this external connection to another database, and now if I hit OK and next, I am able to choose the tables then within that database. So here's where I would map probably specific lookup tables to specific tables within Cherwell. So if you had interactions inside HP Service Manager, we would then have to create a table, well, say let's call it interactions, and I'd map to that. What type of business object? This is just a Cherwell term, and I'll hit next. And then here, we'd actually be able to go through, and of course I chose an empty table, but, oh, I didn't. There we go, map all fields. So now what it'll do is create all those fields inside Cherwell in that table that I just set up. And there we go. So now it's creating that business object for me. This is where I was telling you guys we had the ability to create whatever custom business objects we want. And it's mapped all this external data to that other database. That's another, the server I chose was a test server we had for a client that we were working with. So it mapped, and I just chose the master one, so it's pretty much useless information for us, but it mapped these fields to the fields in that database. So if I were to go inside Cherwell now, I just linked the records. So I'm able to link and look at those records, but I could do it as a import and then go through the database and run a nightly import or something like that to pull over data. We would obviously only have to do it one time to pull over your HP data, but that would map all that data and import it into a table inside Cherwell. So one of the things that I would probably recommend for HP customers coming over, if they had to have the data in Cherwell, they were turning off these other servers, maybe it would be an idea that you could keep them in a separate custom business object so that you could keep your new implementation information separate. And have that as a view only of your old existing tickets. We would very easily be able to do that, as you can see here. We'd just map to that data and import the data. But, and then you just have to build a form to display the data and you'd be set. But if you want to get it into Cherwell and have it for the data that you're going to look at with your live data, then that's where now I take the data in this table in Cherwell, and now I'm able to map it back to, or create lookups back to your out-of-box incident data in Cherwell. And that would be obviously a little bit more work than the 5 minutes it took me to just do this. So,
Craig, I have one more question before you move on. Yep. How is the functionality of the web client?
So the web client looks very similar to the thick client. I just don't like to show it usually in this demo because I seem to have trouble with my connection speed and it looks slow. But let me, I probably need to get used to just doing it because it seems like I always get asked the question. Let me go ahead and open it up here and see if it's working. It may take a second here, sorry. But the functionality is great. And it looks very similar, if not exactly the same, basically, as the thick client. So I mean, if you don't want to manage a client, you can very easily push out the web client to your users. I'm, I guess, personally more old school. I just like thick clients. I feel like they're a little bit more quick and responsive, but that's just, I mean, a thick client versus a web client, that's just kind of the way it is. But it definitely, it would be the same as any other client out there. The only difference I would say is it really does look basically exactly the same. So if this ever loads, and it's actually going to the portal here, I'll show that, and it's not. I might not have it set up right. Sorry, I might not have been prepared for that one. Let's do. While I'm doing this, any other questions there, Laura?
Yes, someone did say he'd be interested in hearing your view on service desk interactions.
So typically now, interaction was something that HP did. It was never an ITIL standard. ITIL is an incident. So typically HP is the only tool you'll ever see that has I haven't seen any others, I guess I should say, that has an interaction. If you want an interaction still, where you go through an interaction and then you escalate that to an incident, we can build that very simply. But it doesn't exist out of box. In Cherwell, everything is an incident. Same thing with Snow or any other tool that you're really looking at. That was an HP thing specifically. I do like the concept of not having it pollute a call that, you know, doesn't go anywhere or maybe was misdiagnosed or whatever you want to call it, that doesn't count against your metrics. So I think the concept is there, but that you could remove with a first call resolution or some other form on your incident. So I typically would ignore the interaction aspect and go directly to the incidents, just because that's the ITIL standard. But that's my recommendation. If your customers, and I know sometimes that's the hard part, if your customers are accustomed to something, sometimes we have to kind of keep it that way. And if that's the case, we can easily build out an interaction module for you.
Great, thank you.
And I may have broke something on here, so I may not be able to show this. Sorry. Or I may not have it fixed quick enough. So while we're doing that, let's see, I showed an out-of-box incident. I showed the dashboard. And I've shown a little bit with the customizations inside the client. Obviously, I could probably go through this for hours, and we only have a limited amount of time. Does anybody have anything else that they'd like to see here, or they think could really show some of the information you may be looking for? You can see we have all the core ITIL standard modules. I did load. Here we go. All right, so here's the portal landing page. This is completely dynamic as well. So I'll show a couple of things here. Okay, so at the top, the only thing you can't change is this black bar in the top right corner. Everything else here can be changed. They have a web form editor inside Cherwell, and then it has another piece that's a CSS of types. It is CSS formatting. It's not a standard complete CSS editor, but you have the ability to use basically HTML code or use their own GUI interface, which I've found to be the easiest. And then each of these pages can be just a dashboard, like the same dashboard that we were looking at on the homepage of the out-of-box one. So this is the portal side. I will show the client side because I think that's the question that was asked earlier. But I wanted to show this and then also the service catalog. So if I click the service catalog item, then this opens what's called the action catalog. So this is just tied to out-of-box data, and inside those category structures, if the visible to client checkbox is checked. And what I want to show is the differences in those forms. We talked about those specific forms. So if I hit request conference phone, that's going to show a certain form that's specific to that information. And again, I apologize, the system's really slow. But so if I go ahead and open that, you can see a form here that shows specific information about requesting that form, like locations or what equipment you need, a projector, a laptop, speakers. And each of these checkboxes, I've built that out before where it'll, if that checkbox is checked, generate a task, assign it to a team, and make sure that that projector is in that location at that specific date and time. So if I go back to that service catalog now, though, and I click a different item, so let's say employee separation, it's going to open up a completely different form. You'll also see it has this add to cart functionality. So I could request or go through 5, 6, 7, whatever number of service catalog items at a time and always add them to the cart and then go from the cart and check out and basically complete that order. So you'd be able to go through my cart and then view your orders too when you're done, which ones you've requested at what time. So that functionality is kind of a very pleasant experience usually to work with. But I will say for many of our HP customers, they don't shy away from some of the tailoring abilities that we may have. And we can build out our own custom dashboards with hyperlinks anywhere on the form, theme it. Instead of hyperlinks, you can have images, and each one of those links can do your own custom workflows. So it's very, very dynamic for people that are willing to put in the work to do it. And obviously most of our HP customers have that experience of having to go through some of that, or they have the staff that's trained. Obviously, it's very easy to convert somebody that's been trained in, JavaScript or working with HP proprietary code to learn how to do something that's an expression-based environment. So I'm going to take that and go from the portal now into the client to show you guys the differences between the client and the portal. Maybe, if it lets me, if I spell correctly. And then anybody that has any specific questions or would like to see a more detailed demo, I'd be happy to put that together for anyone. And I think, Laura, I don't know how they should go about reaching out to you or Bill or what that case would be. You guys can talk about that. But we'd be happy to show a more detailed demo and actually have some of this stuff up and going when you're ready.
And Greg, I do have a couple more questions, so let me know when you have a moment for them.
Now is a great time while we're waiting for the paint to dry here.
Two sort of related questions. The first is, will Cherwell interface with XMatters for paging, and will it work with BOMGAR?
BOMGAR is 100% yes. XMatters for paging is also a yes, but I know that actually they're integrated because XMatters, I believe, just went SaaS as well. And I worked with Cambria, has them integrated with their new SaaS implementation with a SaaS version of Cherwell, I believe, even. So they definitely have both of those integrations in place. And I think those are partners with Cherwell too. That might be something Bill could talk through, the different partners or pieces that we have. But both of those are partners, I think, with Cherwell now. So here is the web client, and I'm going to open up the thick client so you guys can see how similar they look. So very, very similar in functionality and how they work. Hopefully that answers the question that was asked earlier. Anything else, Laura?
That's all I have right now.
Okay. Anybody from Cherwell have any comments they want to add?
If anyone from Cherwell would like to speak, just put your hand up. I'd be happy to unmute you. And Bill Petro from Cherwell is on the line. He's one of our co-hosts, and he has shared a link with us. If you would go to https://partners/technical-alliances. And then, yep, technical-alliances. Not slash, but dash. Yep. Thank you,
Testing
Bill,
how
for
much
that.
coffee I have. for the day. All right.
So that'll give you some more information on some of those
Perfect.
integrations.
That was
Thank
exactly
you,
what I was thinking about. Yes. So this
Excellent.
was, I think this is a great way to kind of show you guys some of the customers or other applications that they have partnerships with and integrations out of box, typically ready to go. So obviously BombGuard and XMatters are both on that list. I think TeamViewer has been another one I've seen quite a bit of lately. And obviously the whole Microsoft suite is a big one. So without any other questions, Laura, I think that's probably it. And then obviously we could have one-off demos that get much more detailed than this.
Absolutely. Well, as a follow-on, if you'd like to see a demonstration, Greg, will you pull up a quick slide and type in my contact information, email and phone, so people can note that. Feel free to reach out to us. You can also put comments in the chat or questions panel here if you'd like to reach out to us. Put your contact information out. I'd be happy to reach out to you and schedule some time to visit with you. This is being recorded, and I'd be happy to send everyone who's on the call today a recorded link. So if it's something you'd like to take a look at, share with your team, we would invite you to do that as well. So there's my email address. Contact us at any time. I hope this was very helpful. We invite you to view future StrataCom webinars. We've got lots of content recorded as well as future. So if you'd like to be on our mailing list, let us know. With that, we'd like to thank you for joining us today and look forward to working with you in the future. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.